He hired me to find his missing wife after she vanished from their gated estate. The voice recorder I found in her closet belonged to a man who died in prison 10 years ago. By the time I realized how deep the case would go, it had already walked through my office door. I was finishing a small job when he showed up. A property manager had been skimming petty cash from a condo association, and I'd spent 2 weeks proving it with deposit slips and a cheap camera. The manager paid back most of it in wrinkled bills, and I stacked them in my desk drawer by habit, not pride. On my blotter sat my lucky quarter, worn smooth. I flipped it once, caught it, and didn't feel anything from it. I was more tired than lucky. Then the knock came. Not a casual knock, measured, patient, expensive. I didn't move right away. I sat there, with my hand on the drawer, listening to the hallway settle. Whoever it was didn't jingle keys or clear a throat. They waited. When I opened the door, a man in a suit worth more than my office stared past me at the file cabinets and the old coffee machine. His watch looked heavy on his wrist. He kept his hands visible, palms empty, and held himself like he was used to people moving when he spoke. "I need my wife found," he said. "She's gone." He stepped in without waiting for an invitation. That told me more than his watch did. I took my chair and didn't offer him mine. He didn't sit anyway. He placed an envelope on my desk and pushed it forward with 2 fingers. Inside was an inkjet-printed note on plain paper. "She's paying for your sins." No letterhead, no signature. The edges were clean, cut with scissors. Along with it was a small plastic baggie with a lock of hair twisted inside. "I got that on my kitchen counter," he said. "This morning. She was still in the house last night." "Any sign of forced entry?" I asked. "We live in a gated community," he said. "Too fast. Cameras, staff, a wall." It wasn't what he said, it was how fast he said it. I picked up the lock of hair and turned the bag in my fingers. It was dark, thick, clean. Not ripped out. Cut. "Police report?" I asked. He hesitated, just a fraction. "I called," he said. "They're doing what they do. I want someone who moves." I'd heard that line from people who didn't want cops walking through their closets. Rich people liked privacy, even when they were scared. "What's your wife's name?" I asked. He gave it. Then he gave me dates, height, what she wore. He said she'd been upset lately. He said there'd been arguments. He said there was no affair. No affair was a strange detail to volunteer. I wrote it down anyway. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo from a few days ago. The 2 of them at a charity event. He had his arm around her. She had a fixed smile and bare shoulders. "I want her back," he said. "Alive." "You think this is kidnapping," I said. "I think it's revenge," he said, and his jaw tightened. "For things I've done. For business." That was a confession, shaped to look like humility. I slid my retainer agreement over. He didn't read it. He signed where I pointed. His signature took up the whole line. Big letters. Confident. I didn't like him, but liking clients was never the job. The job was facts. "I'll start at the house," I said. "I need access. Alarm codes, staff list, camera system." "And I need you to answer questions you won't want to answer." "I'll answer," he said, and that was another too-fast answer. He left the envelope with the note. He kept the lock of hair like it was a relic he didn't want out of his possession. Before he walked out, he nodded at my coffee machine. "You drink that?" he said. "Sometimes," I said. He didn't smile. "Get better." After he left, I sat for a minute and stared at his signature. I'd made a quick read on him. Controlling, scared,
used to winning, and I wasn't fully sure. The speed in his answers could have been panic, it could have been rehearsal. I wrote both possibilities in my notes and didn't circle either. I ordered a coffee from the machine anyway. It tasted the way it always did, hot water and regret. By late afternoon, I was at his place, outside the gates, waiting while a guard confirmed my name on a list.
The walls were high, the landscaping too perfect, and the street inside was quiet in a way that cost money. The client met me at the front door. Up close, he looked like he hadn't slept. His suit was still sharp. The tie knot was tight enough to annoy me. "Staff is in the kitchen," he said. "They've been questioned already." "By who?" I asked. "By me," he said, "and the police." He walked me through rooms that smelled like nothing. No cooking, no pets, no candles. It felt staged for a listing. He took me to the master suite, then gestured toward a walk-in closet. "Her things are in there," he said. "She loved clothes. He cut himself off. Just look." He stayed in the doorway. He didn't cross the threshold. The closet was a showroom. Rows of designer bags with tissue still inside. Shoes lined up by color. Clothes with tags tucked in.
A separate shelf for jewelry boxes, all the same brand, all unused. Greed had a look to it. Unworn. I started with the obvious: drawers, nightstands, laundry hamper. Then the less obvious: the back corners, the high shelves, the floor vents. I checked for a second phone. I checked for a passport stash. I found her handbag on a chair in the bedroom. It was open, as if dumped in the hurry, but I didn't buy the hurry. People who were grabbed didn't leave handbags propped like props. Still, I cataloged what was inside: lipstick, cards, a small notebook with blank pages, and a folded receipt I couldn't read without it. In the closet, I moved shoes in boxes. Behind a row of boots, a shoebox sat turned sideways, label facing the wall. That kind of placement wasn't forgetful. It was hiding. Inside the shoebox, under tissue paper, was a Sony voice recorder. I turned it over in my hand.
The client shifted in the doorway. "That hers?" I asked. He frowned. "I've never seen it." The recorder had fingerprints smudged along the play button. I powered it on, battery half full. The file list showed multiple recordings. The latest one was time-stamped 2 weeks ago. I didn't play it yet, not in front of him. People performed when they knew what you were hearing. I bagged it and kept searching. In a drawer beneath sweaters, I found an empty ring box. Not the wedding band box, something smaller. Velvet lining. New. "Any of her jewelry missing?" I asked, keeping my voice flat. "I don't inventory her jewelry," he said, then added, "Why would I?" He was offended. That meant he cared what I thought. That was useful. I asked for access to the home security system. He led me to a closet in the hallway with a panel and a router stack. The camera footage from the exterior gates showed cars coming and going. The night she vanished, there was a service vehicle logged, then nothing unusual. "Any blind spots?" I asked. "No," he said. That answer was too clean. No property had no blind spots, not even the ones built by paranoid people. I copied what I could: gate logs, camera timestamps, the alarm arm-disarm history. The system showed the alarm was disarmed at 1:12 a.m. and rearmed at 1:19 a.m. by her code. "Your wife got up and disarmed the house," I said. He swallowed. Maybe she heard something. Or maybe she needed 7 minutes. Back at my office, I waited before playing the recorder. I sat in my car in the lot and held the evidence bag on my lap, not moving yet. It's a bad habit, sitting with a case before you step into it, but I do it anyway. Once you press play, you can't unhear.
Upstairs, I set the recorder on my desk and hit play. A man's voice came through, close to the mic. "You still wearing it?" he said. Paper rustled. Someone poured a drink. "You got the codes?" the man asked. "I told you," the woman said. "I have everything. Gate, alarm, his laptop login, the offshore portal. He's careless because he thinks he bought the world." "You're sure he can't claw it back?" the man asked. "He can try," she said, "but he taught me what signatures do, what documents do, what people believe when it's printed." The man chuckled. "That's my girl." My pen stopped. My cynicism had me thinking she was a victim dragged into something. The tape didn't sound dragged. It sounded planned. The man's voice was familiar in a way I didn't like. I rewound and listened again, focusing on cadence, the slight rasp. The file ended with the man saying, "10 years.
He thinks I died in there. I paused the recorder. My office felt smaller. If that voice was who it sounded like, then I was holding a ghost. The next morning, I went through the wife's handbag again, slower. The folded receipt was a pawn ticket, creased into a tight square and shoved behind the card slots. Pawn ticket number 4092. Item, vintage brooch. Borrower name, Elena. There was a signature, a shaky E and a loop that tried to look like someone else's handwriting. I ran the name through public records. Elena had died years ago. Car crash, obituary, cemetery listing. Why would a rich woman pawn jewelry using her dead sister's name? I drove to the pawn shop on the ticket. It sat between a shuttered storefront and a discount phone repair place. The sign promised cash fast in peeling letters. Inside, the clerk kept his hands on the counter and his answers short.
He looked at my credentials and sighed like I had ruined his morning. "I'm not giving you customer info," he said. "Not asking for charity," I said. "I'm asking for a copy of ticket number 4092. It's part of a missing person investigation." He shook his head. "Police?" "I'm private," I said, "but the paperwork is the same problem for you. If she's missing, that item is evidence." He leaned back. "I don't keep stuff that long." The drawer behind him was labeled Hold. Fresh labels, fresh lies. "Then you won't mind showing me the empty slot," I said. His jaw worked. "I said no customer info." "I didn't ask for her address," I said. "I asked for the ticket copy." He tapped the counter twice, a nervous habit. "People lose tickets, people come back angry." "You've got cameras," I said. "You've got a safe. You've got records." He looked past my shoulder, as if he expected someone to walk in and rescue him from basic business practices.
"She came in 3 days ago," he said finally. "Fancy purse, expensive nails." "Did the name match?" I asked, "or did you let it slide?" He gave me a flat stare. "Name matched." It didn't. His earlier "I don't keep stuff" had already told me he was improvising. "What did she show for ID?" I asked. "Driver's license," he said. "You scanned it," I said. He hesitated. The scanner was down. A second lie, faster than the first. "Then you typed it in," I said. He exhaled through his nose. "Copy. Not good, but it's scanned." "Did she come alone?" I asked. He lifted a shoulder. "Nobody comes alone." "Answer it," I said. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the counter. "Guy waited outside, in a car." "What kind of car?" I asked. "Dark," he said. "Sedan. Clean." I asked to see the brooch. He pushed back from the counter. "That's not how it works," he said. "It works however you decide it works," I said. "Right now, you're deciding you never saw her." He stood there long enough for the silence to turn uncomfortable. Then he reached under the counter and opened a drawer. He slid out a small velvet tray. The brooch was delicate, old gold with a dark stone, the kind of family piece people didn't pawn unless they were sending a message. I photographed it, the serial tag, and the pawn ticket printout the clerk finally handed over. "You're going to bring cops here." "I'm trying not to," I said. "You're helping me fail." Outside, I sat in my car and reread the pawn ticket twice without finding anything new. Same number, same fake name, same date. I wanted it to say more. It didn't. So I went where the client wanted me to go next, his rival. The client had given me a name the night before, a business rival he called a shark, someone who'd tried to buy him out and failed. He wanted the rival blamed. He wanted a clean villain. I decided to commit to it for a day. It was a good theory on paper. Rivalry, revenge note, missing wife. I told myself I was following the most likely route, not the easiest. I parked near the rival's apartment building and waited. Stakeouts were mostly time and discomfort. I ate a stale protein bar and watched residents come and go with gym bags and grocery totes. I kept my camera ready. The rival finally showed. Expensive coat, phone to his ear, moving fast. He wasn't alone. A younger woman got out of the passenger side, laughing, fixing her hair. Not the wife. Different build, different walk, different everything. They went inside together. Later, they came out. He argued with her in the open, then tossed her a set of keys and walked away alone. That argument was real. It wasn't staged for me. I took photos anyway. Time-stamped. A clean chain of evidence that showed what he was doing. Not kidnapping, cheating. I followed him for an hour, not 2. Office building, quick lunch, back to his place. No detours that mattered. By the time I broke off, I was irritated at myself for buying the client's story so completely. I'd wanted a villain with a name because it made the job feel organized. Back at my office, I listened to the recorder again with headphones. I isolated the man's voice and compared it to an old news clip I pulled from an archived article. 10 years ago, a fraud case, a man convicted, died in prison. The article had no audio, but it had a photo and a name. The voice on my recorder didn't care that the paperwork said dead. It sounded alive. I needed someone who knew the client's past from the inside. Not the client, not his lawyer, not a public record. Security. The client had mentioned a former head of security, fired years ago for drinking. I asked for the name. He gave it with a shrug, like it was trash. "He's probably under a bridge," the client said. "He always ended up under a bridge." That was said with a little too much satisfaction. I found the man at the docks, sitting on a broken pallet near a cluster of shopping carts. He had layers of clothes and a corporate ID badge on a lanyard that looked like it had survived a flood. The badge photo matched his face if you added 10 years of hard living. I approached slow, hands visible. "I'm not with him," I said. The homeless man's posture tightened. "Nobody's with him unless they're paid." "I'm paid to find his wife," I said. "She's missing, and there's a note about sins." He laughed, one short burst. "Sins." He finally got a note that fits. He tried to stand and winced. I offered him a bottle of water. He took it without thanking me.
"Talk to me," I said. "I need facts, not sermons." He twisted the cap, drank, and wiped his mouth with his sleeve. "You don't know what you stepped into," he said. "I know enough to ask," I said. "Who's the man she's talking to on the recordings?" His mouth pressed into a line. Then he looked away toward the water. "That voice," he said, "should be dead. That's what the papers said. That's what he paid for." "You worked security when the fraud happened," I said. "Tell me what you saw." He pulled his badge out and stared at it. The photo was him in a suit, hair combed, shoulders squared. "He had a partner," he said, "the one who built the whole thing." "Name," I said. He gave it. The same name from the archived article. The same man who died in prison. "He set him up," the homeless man said. "Paperwork, transfers, signatures that didn't match." "Did you see a body?" I asked. He shook his head. "No." "What about the wife?" I asked. "Was she around back then?" He shook his head again. "She came after. New wife." He drank, then lowered his voice. "But I saw her once," he said, "months back, near the marina, talking to a man." I waited, letting him fill his own silence. "I thought it was the client," he said. "It wasn't. He moved different." "Different how?" I asked. He shrugged. "Harder, not polished." That was the first usable thing I'd gotten that didn't come straight from the client's mouth. I paid the homeless man for his time. He tried to refuse at first, then took it, folding the bills carefully. "You didn't hear this from me," he said.
"I didn't hear it," I said, and meant it. On my way back, I cut through an underground parking garage to get to where I'd left my car. I was thinking about the recorder, about how to explain to a rich man that his wife might be running the show. I was halfway down the ramp when a black sedan rolled in behind me. The plates were caked with mud. Deliberate. The car didn't honk, it didn't flash lights, it just followed. I moved toward a concrete pillar where the lighting was worse. I didn't want to be a silhouette in the open. The sedan accelerated. 2 men got out before it stopped fully. Both wore hoodies, both moved with purpose, and neither spoke. One had something in his hand that stayed low. I ran. No hero moves, just running. My shoe slipped on an oil patch, and I caught myself on a pillar, scraping my palm. The pain sharpened everything. They closed the distance. I heard shoes slap the concrete. I cut between parked cars and hit a stairwell door. It didn't open. Locked. I swore out loud, loud enough to waste breath. I doubled back and ducked behind a row of pillars, keeping cars between me and them. The sedan's engine stayed running. One of the men said, "Drop it." Not a question, an instruction. I didn't have a gun in my hand. I had a case file in my head, and that didn't help me now. I threw my phone hard across the floor. It skidded under a car. The sound drew them for half a second. I used that half second to sprint toward the garage exit where daylight bled in. My lungs burned. My scraped palm left sweat on my pant leg. A security camera above the exit turned slowly. I ran under it on purpose.
I made it out onto the street and didn't stop until I hit a convenience store with people inside. I stood by the coolers, pretending to look at bottled water while my heart tried to climb out of my chest. Nobody followed me in. Nobody yelled. The world kept buying snacks. When I finally walked back out, I took a different route to my car. I checked my mirrors twice. I didn't feel brave. I felt lucky in a way I didn't deserve. That attack changed my day. I stopped treating this as a missing person with a dramatic note. Someone didn't want me moving. I also couldn't place it yet. The men didn't talk.
The sedan had no readable plates. I kept going over my own steps, trying to find where I'd been obvious. I copied my recorder files to a second device the moment I got back to the office. Then I emailed myself the pawn ticket photos and the gate log screenshots. Then I printed them. Redundancy wasn't paranoia when someone had tried to corner me in concrete. I called the client and told him to meet me at his house, not my office. I didn't want him knowing where I kept backups. I didn't tell him about the garage yet. I wanted to see his face when the truth started. At the estate, he met me in his kitchen. The staff stayed out of sight, but I heard movement behind a door. He poured himself a drink at 10 a.m. No offer for me. "Any news?" he said. "Some," I said. I took out the 8x10 glossy photo he'd texted me earlier and asked him to print. The one from the charity event. "Tell me about this night again." He looked relieved. We stayed an hour. She was tense, she left early, I stayed.
I came home at midnight. She was asleep. You're sure she was asleep? I said. He frowned. I saw her in bed. I didn't argue. I just set the photo flat on the counter and leaned over it. I'd looked at it before. I'd focused on faces, posture, what the client wanted me to see. This time I looked at hands. Her left ring finger showed a tan line, clean, pale skin where a ring had been. The ring itself wasn't on her hand in the photo. I stayed quiet for a beat, not for drama, because I needed to be sure I wasn't inventing it. I angled the photo under the kitchen light. The lines stayed. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring, I said. He laughed once, quick. So what? She takes it off sometimes. In public? I said. At a charity event you paid for? He set his glass down too hard. You're reaching. I pulled the alarm history printout from my folder and slid it beside the photo. Her code disarmed the alarm at 1:12 a.m., I said. Rearmed at 1:19 a.m. He stared at the paper, then at me. You're saying she left, he said. I'm saying she planned to leave, I said. She took the ring off before the night she vanished. That wasn't panic, that was preparation. He shook his head. No, she'd never... I played the recorder. Not the whole thing, just the part about codes and offshore access. His face drained in a way money couldn't fix. That's not her, he said, but it was weak. It's her, I said. And that man on the tape, you know who he is. He didn't answer. His throat moved like he was swallowing glass. I'd been wrong at the start. My cynicism had made me assume she was a pawn in a man's game.
The tape in the tan line said she was her own operator. I let that sit inside me without turning it into a clean insight. I didn't like being that wrong. I watched him handle the glass, too tight, knuckles pale. The last time I'd seen him tense like that was in my office, when I mentioned the police. I need your laptop, I said. The one you use for accounts. He hesitated. Now, I said. He brought it from his office, hands shaking. He opened it and logged in. The offshore portal was already bookmarked. That told me she'd been in his browser history enough times to make it routine. He clicked through with the speed of someone who had done it a lot. Balances came up in neat rows. Then a notification popped in the corner. Transfer completed. He didn't touch the mouse. His hand hovered and froze. Refresh, I said. He hit refresh. 0 balances. One after another. Accounts that had held 7 figures now read 0.00. A line item showed outgoing wires split into smaller transfers. There were reference numbers and timestamps. He made a sound that wasn't a word. "I can stop it," he said. "Call the bank. Reverse it." "Offshore transfers don't reverse because you feel sick," I said. "Get on the phone anyway." He dialed. He tried to talk over the automated prompts. He demanded a manager. He started throwing his status around. It didn't matter. While he was on hold, I pulled the transaction details and photographed the screen. I needed dates and times. One of the transfers listed a clearance time, 9:16 a.m. I remembered his signature on my retainer agreement the day before. I'd stamped it when he signed in my office, 9:03 a.m. He'd signed my retainer at 9:03. The transfer cleared at 9:16. She'd given herself 13 minutes to spare. I didn't tell him that right away. I wrote it in my notebook, hard enough to dent the paper. His call ended with him staring at the laptop as if he could intimidate it. "This is theft," he said. "This is planning," I said, "and it's tied to your past." He stood up fast, chair scraping. "I need her found. I'll pay more. Anything." "You don't have more," I said, and nodded at the screen. He flinched, then grabbed the recorder from my evidence bag and threw it against the counter. It clattered, plastic cracking. "Stop saying that voice," he snapped. "He's dead." "He's not dead enough," I said. "And someone sent 2 men after me in a garage. That's not a grieving husband problem. That's a cover your tracks problem." He went still. "What garage?" he said. I watched him carefully. He looked genuinely confused. That was the first time all day he didn't look like he was acting.
I didn't clear him. I just wrote another note. Client didn't recognize garage detail. A doorbell rang. He didn't move. The staff didn't move. The house held its breath. Then the bell rang again, followed by a hard knock. I stepped toward the entryway with him trailing behind, slower now. When he opened the door, 2 uniformed officers stood there with a third person in plain clothes holding a folder. Procedural, not dramatic. They didn't glance around to admire the marble. The plainclothes investigator spoke first. "We have a warrant." "For what?" the client said, voice rising. "Old fraud case," the investigator said. "New information, and some offshore activity that flagged this morning." The client tried to protest. He tried to say it was a kidnapping. He tried to say his wife was missing. The investigator listened for 10 seconds, then held up the warrant. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." The cuffs clicked. The client's expensive watch flashed once as his wrist turned, then disappeared behind him. He looked at me then, not pleading exactly, more like accusing me of being part of the world that finally didn't care about him. "I hired you," he said. "You hired me to find her," I said, "not to fix 10 years ago." The officers walked him out. His driveway swallowed them. The gate rolled open, then closed again. I handed the investigator copies of what I had: the pawn ticket, the alarm log, the recorder file backup, the transaction photos, and my notes about the homeless former head of security at the docks. I kept my own copies. I always kept my own copies. When it was done, the house felt even cleaner. The staff still didn't come out. Back at my office, I sat with my coffee and didn't open the file for a while. The machine coffee tasted worse than usual. Or maybe my mouth was still dry from the garage. I flipped my lucky quarter once and caught it. It didn't change anything. I wrote my final case note. Wife staged departure. Premeditated. Ghost collaborator. Client's money gone. Client in custody. Wife location unknown. I closed the folder, slid it into the cabinet, and locked it. The last thing I saw before shutting my desk drawer was the retainer copy with his bold signature at 9:03 a.m., and I couldn't stop thinking about the transfer confirmation that hit at 9:16.